And welcome to The Bottom Line, where we unpack some of the main business and economic stories of the day. Those whose life stories are characterized by success, especially financial success, always attract attention and questions, and in some way everyone wants to know more about them. Daniel Křetínský is one of those Czech billionaires, and this week seems to be his week as he makes headlines with his successful deals. But those Czechs being made redundant in the run-up to Christmas won't be feeling this way. To tell us about what is happening in the Czech Republic is Lukáš Kovanda, chief economist at the Czech Trinity Bank. Hello, and thank you for joining us again on The Bottom Line.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
So many headlines around the world along the lines of what do we know about Daniel Křetínský are flying around this week. He's just bought Royal Mail, and then we hear that he is buying stakes in Slovakia's main electric utility plant. Where does he get his money from? Can you tell us?
He started as a lawyer with JRT Group at the at the end of 1990s, and then he grew quite fast in quite a rapid way through the ranks. So this investment company, and already in 2004 he became chairman of Sparta Prague football club, and then he successfully increased his wealth and made some quite bold bets on fossil fuels, and the fact and the expectation was that Europe couldn't go so fast without fossil fuels. It was at the end of the first decade of the century, and then after the financial crisis, and he simply bet that it wouldn't be possible for Europe as a whole, as I said, to get rid of fossil fuels like coal, for example, or gas. And when many other companies were selling their assets in the fossil fuel industry, he was buying it, and this strategy proved successful, especially during last several years, with the energy crisis coming from the invasion of Russia to the Ukraine, and with the necessity of getting rid of fossil fuels from Russia. Then with an increase of coal prices and gas prices all around Europe, he became really a king with his assets, and made huge wealth even in the global scale. So this is his way, which is quite unique in European segment.
So basically, his bets paid off. He made the right strategic approach. And it was
one of the most successful bets in last 10 or 15 or 20 years, not just in Europe or Central Europe, but I would say even in the world, because this is something which I said is unique.
But he's been described as a quiet sphinx, and his portfolio of assets is very broad and varied. And in the space of 1 year, his value has gone up by 2.4 billion euros, just over that. But how is he actually perceived by the Czechs?
He is perceived as a successful businessman, billionaire, but especially as the owner or the chairman of Sparta Prague, which is a very famous football club here in the Czech Republic. But regarding his opinions, for example, he has been trying to maintain a low profile. So it's even for Czechs, it's quite difficult to learn who really Daniel Křetínský is, or his opinions on, for example, politics or some trends in Europe or globally. He has done, or he has made only few interviews during his lifetime, so it's very difficult for Czech and international media to really describe him and put him in some perspective.
And are you able to tell us how the nuclear power plants in Slovakia fit into Kretinsky's strategic approach to his assets?
Energy sector is a key or is a ground of this whole imperium, because he's trying to build strong energy base, and it gives him a strong political influence, because we have seen during the last few years that energetic sector is really the most important for whole economy, and because of this influence he can do easily other businesses in other spheres that are not so important, that are not so basic from the economic point of view. For example, he is now trying to push his businesses into media world or into parcel world, e-commerce, but these are not so basic sectors like energy, because without energy you cannot do anything. So I think this is his philosophy, to get a strong asset structure in energetic sector, and then on this build other sectors with the political influence that gives him this strong presence in energy sector.
And do you think that he'll be able to restructure Royal Mail? He'll be able to turn around its woes?
I think his main goal with Royal Mail is really to get GLS, which is a parcel service from Netherlands, and he bought it together in one package, let's put it this way, with Royal Mail, and I think he is betting now on e-commerce boom in Europe, and he is also a stake in PostNL, which is the biggest parcel service in Netherlands, and Netherlands together with Germany, when GLS is very strong, is key market for e-commerce. So I think it's not so much about just Royal Mail, this whole thing, but it's also about
part of a bigger vision that he has.
Bigger vision in e-commerce sector.
Okay. And Michal Strnad, he seems to be a little bit of a different character. He's the owner of CSG. His focus is arms and ammunition. And if I'm still correct, he's the youngest Czech billionaire and belongs to the group of the most successful people in the world. What can you tell us about him?
It's also quite difficult to describe him, even for me, because like Mr. Křetínský, Mr. Strnad is also a billionaire who is trying to maintain a low profile with only little communication with media. But again, like in Mr. Křetínský case, there is a good environment right now for Mr. Strnad's businesses, because of course the war in Ukraine, and he is very strong in ammunition and army business. So from this point of view, he is also trying to capitalize now on this quite difficult geopolitical environment. So these are many things that these two billionaires had in common.
There's actually a reputation that Czech billionaires have made for themselves. They're actually some of the most powerful and influential billionaires in the world, definitely in our Central and Eastern European region. What is the history behind that?
It's a very interesting story, because compared, for example, with Poland or even with Hungary, and other countries in Central and Eastern Europe, the concentration of so-called oligarchs or very wealthy billionaires, it's in Czech Republic higher than in other countries. So I think it's something that we have to go in the past how Czech privatization was done, how the transformation from the socialistic regime into the market economy was done during the 1990s and in the first years of this millennium. And it was a way that was more, let's say, more advantageous for these big guys, big so-called oligarchs, not just Mr. Křetínský or Mr. Strnad, but also, for example, Mr. Kellner, Petr Kellner, late billionaire, and others. And this, I think, it's connected also with the fact that Czech economy is the wealthiest from the region of Central and Eastern Europe. So it was easier for Czech businessmen to accumulate wealth into this large proportion that really today these businessmen are amongst the wealthiest, not just in Central and Eastern Europe, or even in some cases in the world.
So the Czech economy is in a very difficult situation. There have been many redundancies that have been announced, and we have this small, very strong group of Czech billionaires. And Kretinsky actually, in his very few interviews, has actually made it clear that he's interested in the French, British and German markets when it comes to his investments. Should they not actually focus on the Czech market? Should, for instance, Kretinsky, could he not try and reinvest for the benefit of the Czech economy?
Yeah, but for them now Czech market is very small, so their ambitions and their wealth and their investment opportunities are today so big that they are going well beyond what Czech market could offer. So I think it's quite natural for them to go abroad, and also these billionaires want to improve their reputation, because in Western Europe they still are seen as people or billionaires from Eastern Europe, and they are trying to promote themselves that they are already based well and established well in Western part of Europe via, for example, French newspapers Le Monde, or now with Mr. Kretinsky in Britain with Royal Mail, which are very well-known brands there. So these billionaires are trying now to be more active in the western part of Europe to really improve their reputation as really guys of this big global format.
Okay, Lukáš Kovanda, great speaking to you as ever. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Have a nice evening.
And that was Lukáš Kovanda, Chief Economist at the Czech Trinity Bank. Thanks so much for joining us today. And I was your host, Marie Caso. Join us every weekday for Business Arena at 5 p.m. CET on TVP World. And for the latest in regional business, follow us on X and on tvpworld.com. And for more news and features, stay with us on TVP World. Goodbye.